Tuberculosis. It's one of humanity's oldest enemies, an ancient disease. But what happens when you take that ancient disease and you fight it with some seriously cutting-edge 21st century tech? Well, you get a full-blown revolution in how we diagnose it. So today, let's dive in and unpack the incredible GeneXpert system that is completely changing the global fight against TB.
Right, that's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? For decades, just finding TB was a massive challenge. You see, the bacteria, they're notoriously slow-growing, and they love to hide in really small numbers, which makes them incredibly difficult to spot. This meant patients could be waiting weeks, sometimes even longer, for a solid diagnosis, all while the disease could be getting worse and spreading. The world was desperate for a better, faster, and just plain smarter test.
So, before this big revolution, we were pretty much relying on old-school methods like microscopy and culture. Now, microscopy, just looking for the bacteria under a microscope, well, it missed a ton of cases, especially in patients who didn't have a lot of bacteria to begin with. And culture, which is way more accurate, could take weeks, literal weeks, to grow the bacteria in a special high-security lab. It was just way too slow for the modern world.
And then, everything changed. A new piece of technology shows up that honestly looks less like a traditional lab and more like a fancy coffee machine. This is the GeneXpert system. People started calling it a lab in a box, and for good reason. It runs a test called CBNAAT, and it was a complete and total paradigm shift for TB diagnostics.
Okay, so what in the world is CBNAT? I know, the name is a mouthful. Cartridge-based nucleic acid amplification test. But the idea behind it is absolutely brilliant. You basically take this super complex laboratory procedure, shrink it all down, and pack it into a single, self-contained, disposable cartridge. No more complicated setups, just a simple, automated process. So how does this magic box actually do what it does? What's the science that gives it this diagnostic superpower? Well, to get that, we need to peek inside that little cartridge and look at the core technology that makes the whole thing possible.
At the very heart of the GeneXpert system is a technique called real-time PCR. And probably the best way to think about it is like a super-specific molecular photocopier. If there's even one tiny little fragment of TB DNA in a patient's sample, this machine can find it and, in a really short time, make millions and millions of copies of it until it's super easy to detect. It's amazing!
And the process itself? It's just brilliantly simple. I mean, it's designed to be almost foolproof. A minimally trained lab tech just preps the sample, injects it into the cartridge, and slots that cartridge into the machine. And that's it. From there, the machine takes over and handles everything else, processing the sample, amplifying the DNA, analyzing it, which really minimizes any chance for human error.
But hang on, this is where it gets even smarter. The test doesn't just ask one question, it asks two absolutely critical ones at the exact same time. First, is the TB bacterium even here? And second, does this particular strain of TB have a mutation in its rpoB gene? Now that gene is what makes the bacteria vulnerable to one of our most important drugs, rifampicin. So if there's a mutation, that signals drug resistance. Getting both of those answers at once? A total game changer for getting patients on the right treatment fast.
So the big question is, what does all this cool technology actually mean out there in the real world? Well, the impact has been nothing short of transformative. For patients, for doctors, for healthcare workers, it's made the entire process so much faster, safer, and a whole lot smarter.
Less than 2 hours. Just think about that for a second. We went from a system that could take days, or like we said, even weeks, to get a solid answer, to getting one in less time than it takes to watch a movie. This incredible speed means a patient can get a diagnosis and start on the correct treatment, all on the very same day they walk into the clinic.
And it's not just fast, it is incredibly accurate. For those cases where the old microscope method could actually see the bacteria, GeneXpert is nearly 100% sensitive. But its real superpower is right here, in the smear-negative cases, the ones with very few bacteria floating around. It still catches over 70% of them. We're talking about finding patients who, in the past, would have been completely missed.
Another massive advantage is safety. Because everything, all the chemistry, all the reactions, happens inside that sealed cartridge, the risk of releasing infectious particles into the lab is practically zero. And that means the test can be run in really basic labs, bringing these powerful diagnostics out of specialized centers and way closer to the communities that need them the most.
And this incredible sensitivity has been a true lifeline for some really specific groups. We're talking about kids whose samples often have very few bacteria, patients with TB outside of the lungs, which is notoriously hard to diagnose,
and people living with HIV, whose immune systems make them so vulnerable. For these patients, GeneXpert isn't just a better test. In many cases, it's the only test that can find the disease in time to save them.
But of course, no technology is absolutely perfect, right? While the advantages are huge, I mean, it's fast, it's automated, it's safe, there are limitations. The machine and the cartridges, they're expensive, and each machine can only run a few samples at a time, which isn't great for big, high-volume labs. So it's important that we see the whole picture.
But hey, the story doesn't end there. Technology like this is constantly evolving. And sure enough, in 2017, the World Health Organization endorsed the next generation of the test, a brand new cartridge called GeneXpert Ultra, and it was designed to be even more powerful.
So how'd they make it better? Well, think of it this way. The original GeneXpert was looking for one main genetic target. GeneXpert Ultra keeps that target but adds 2 more. It's like, instead of just having one fishing line in the water, you now have 3. By searching for more genetic markers at once, you dramatically increase your chances of finding the bacteria, even when it's incredibly scarce.
And this number right here is the result. GeneXpert Ultra can detect as few as 16 little bacteria in a single milliliter of sample. I mean, that is an astonishingly tiny amount. It is the ultimate needle in a haystack detector. It's built specifically for the absolute most difficult to diagnose cases, and it's really pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
So, when you boil it all down, the real triumph of the GeneXpert system is this. It takes this highly complex, incredibly powerful lab process and just brilliantly packages it into a simple, safe, and reliable little cartridge. It really democratized molecular diagnostics, taking it out of the ivory tower and putting it right where it was needed most.
This technology has just fundamentally changed our ability to find and to fight tuberculosis. But it also makes you wonder, doesn't it? With our diagnostic tests getting this fast and this smart, what's the next big frontier? What's the next hurdle we have to overcome to finally, once and for all, end this ancient disease for good?